Chaos Walking is a new movie starring Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley. Now, the premise of this movie is that humans have left Earth and they've gone to colonize another planet that is very much like Earth. This is set in the future, I think a couple hundred years, and this planet seems pretty perfect. It's very much Earth-like, but there is a bit of a problem. For all the men on this planet, their thoughts can be heard and seen. Whenever a man is thinking about something, the noise of his thoughts will be projected outwards. Therefore, people can see it as like a glow around their head and they can hear what is being said. This, however, does not apply to women, but there appear to be no women left on this planet. Even though they did originally come with the men, it is said that the species that inhabit the planet killed them. And we follow our main character, played by Tom Holland, who's once again brilliant, as he has been in pretty much everything I've ever seen him in. So all you're left with is a colony of men inhabiting this planet, but things go a little bit pear-shaped when a space shuttle crash lands on the planet and it has a girl on it. More specifically, it has Daisy Ridley on it. And Tom Holland, who's never seen a girl before, finds Daisy Ridley, and there is your story. Now, before I talk about the film itself, I want to mention reviews. My friend told me to watch this, so that's exactly what I did. But before, I wanted to research the movie a little bit because I hadn't heard much about it. And you come across like the Rotten Tomatoes, the IMDb scores, and they ain't good, but I'm here to tell you, if you've seen those reviews, I wouldn't listen to them. I would watch the movie yourself, because to say they're way off is an understatement. I think critics are just very bitter these days. You know, even I am, you know, pretty harsh on some movies, but I'm willing to give a movie a chance. And when it's something like this, something different, you need to give it a chance. But moving on from that, let's talk about the movie. I've got to say the concept is really cool. It was something different, something original. It's never something I've seen done before. You get a lot of movies sort of set in the future where, you know, human race is struggling to survive, or they've had to go to other planets, but this was something very different. And you know, the film title is very appropriate, Chaos Walking. That's literally what it is, you know, a man walking, but then you can hear his thoughts, so chaos. Now, I've got to say, good performances from everyone all around, especially Tom and Daisy. It was nice to see them in a movie together. To my knowledge, I don't think they've ever collaborated together, but they were really good in this. Tom, once again, playing an American. I feel like he's never going to play a British person ever again at this rate, because he just plays Americans really well. The accent is just perfect. Daisy was really good in this. This is probably her best performance that I've seen from her. You know, the Star Wars movies were just, I don't think it was her fault, but I think watching those movies, it's hard to judge whether she is a problem or if her writing's a problem. But she showed in this movie that she's a very good actress. So I'm glad this movie has clarified the Star Wars trilogy in the sense of, because I just couldn't pinpoint whether it was her not being great at acting or if it was just the writing being really poor. And you know, the world and the movie is just really immersive. You really get lost in it because it's something new. So that was nice. You know, you just kind of get sucked into the movie for about 2 hours, and I enjoyed that. It was nice to sort of just zone out from the outside world for a bit and just get lost in an interesting movie. Now, of course, the thing that's very intriguing, of course, is the whole thoughts thing, and you're wondering how they're going to play that off. How do they make it work? Obviously, whenever a character is thinking, you can hear their thoughts. We mainly stick with Tom Holland here, and because he's obviously quite young, he's not in a position to really control his thoughts that well. He can't hide them, and it's a case of when he doesn't want someone to hear his thoughts, he starts trying to think of things, and he starts like talking to himself in his head so that they aren't hearing what he's actually thinking. But you know what it's like, you know, someone says to you don't think of elephants, the first thing you think of is elephants. So if you're trying to think of what you're not meant to be thinking of, you are thinking of it, and therefore the other person's going to hear it. So it feels like there's always a bit of tension and a bit of stuff at risk here, because everyone is going to know what the hell you're thinking. If you're thinking about punching someone in the face, they know you're about to attack them, so they're going to get all defensive on you. There's no hiding in this world. Now, when it comes to Daisy and Tom, Daisy wants to get back to her main spaceship because obviously she went in a little shuttle and crash landed here. It's clearly not safe for women on this planet, so Tom decides to help her try and get back. Now, their relationship was really well done, I'd say, because she's new to this planet. She's amazed by the whole thought thing, you know, and the fact that she can see Tom's thoughts and all the other guys' thoughts, but they can't see what she's thinking. It kind of gives her this major advantage. And there's a real sense of awkwardness between Tom and Daisy, because this is the first time Tom has seen a girl and he thinks that she's pretty, but also she can hear that. And at some points you're just like, oh my god, the cringe. But it's not like bad cringe, it's kind of funny and understandable cringe. Now, whilst I enjoyed these moments between them and their little journey that they go on, the plot wasn't overly interesting. you know, I think the premise of the whole movie is cool, as I said, but the journey they're going on isn't particularly exciting. It's just a case of Tom's trying to help Daisy get home. And I almost think they could have done more with the setting and the whole thoughts thing. I think maybe they could have told a more interesting story, personally. You know, still with the same characters, but just something a little more exhilarating. But saying that, it's still enough to keep me curious. Like, I was still curious about how this is going to end, and the movie's quite brutal as well, so it doesn't really feel like any character is safe or protected. But I mean, I think the direction of the movie wasn't great. The thing with this movie was, it felt like it had been cut down. Like there were some scenes missing, or scenes had been cut short, because things felt a little disconnected. It didn't necessarily feel like one long flowing story. It felt like a series of scenes rather than one big movie. And that made it feel kind of choppy and disconnected, because some scenes just seemed abrupt, and there were quite a few loose ends overall in this movie. You know, things that were started but weren't finished, or they were started and they were just cut off and that was it. And you sort of felt like there was more to be done there. There was more to be told. It definitely felt like a movie that had cuts. It felt like it needs to be longer. It feels like there needs to be like a Snyder cut of this movie. And I think it's a shame, because I actually would have watched more of this movie. I'm not saying that after an hour and 45 minutes, which is how long this movie is roughly, of watching, that I was sort of like, wow, I really want to see more. But it was a case of, it felt like there could be more, and I think if the movie had been fleshed out better from the start, and scenes had been longer, and we'd spent more time with our characters, then you would get to the point where you want more of the movie and you don't necessarily want it to end. It just felt like characters were sometimes done with pretty quickly, and the ending for me, which, no spoilers of course, but it felt like it was done with very quickly. It was just sort of solved. Because you get into the back end of the movie and there's not long left, you know, like 5-10 minutes, and they're gonna wrap this up, and they do, and you just sort of think, okay. Not necessarily unsatisfactory, but it just didn't feel like a proper ending, didn't feel like it really took its time as much. I definitely enjoyed this movie though, and I think it's definitely worth watching. It played on an interesting concept, and it played it pretty well too. But I think a better and more fleshed out story could have taken this movie from, that's a cool idea, to a great original movie. It was just missing those little bits of direction, that little bit of extra oomph. But overall, I enjoyed this movie. You should give it a watch. If you have seen it, do let me know what you think. And overall, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching. I will see all of you in the next one.